People think regulation in conversation means being calm, polite, or saying the right thing. It doesn't. Regulation in conversation is about what your body does while words are happening. A regulated conversation doesn't feel exciting. It doesn't feel intense. And it definitely doesn't feel urgent. Regulation looks like you're listening without preparing your response. Your breath doesn't change when the other person speaks. You don't feel the need to correct, convince, or defend. You're present, but not gripping. When someone disagrees with you and your body stays neutral, that's regulation. When silence shows up and you don't rush to fill it, that's regulation. When a conversation ends and you don't replay it in your head, that's regulation. Dysregulation, on the other hand, shows up subtly. It sounds like explaining more than necessary, softening your truth to keep the peace, feeling responsible for how the other person feels, leaving conversations tired instead of clear. That exhaustion isn't social fatigue. It's your nervous system working overtime to maintain safety. Regulated people don't manage conversations. They participate in them. They allow misunderstandings, different perspectives, without collapsing or escalating. This is why regulated communication feels slower, not because people are careful, but because nothing is being protected. You'll notice regulation when your tone doesn't change to match theirs. Your body doesn't lean forward to prove something. You can say less and still feel complete. You don't need to perform connection. You don't need to earn agreement. You don't need to be understood immediately. When your nervous system feels safe, conversation becomes simple, not shallow. Simple. And the clearest sign of regulation. You can leave the conversation exactly as you entered it, without taking anything with you.
If you've ever noticed that you feel calm and clear around some people, but tense, quiet, or shut down around others, this isn't random, and it isn't weakness. It's regulation. Your nervous system is constantly scanning for safety, not logic. It doesn't ask, is this person good? It asks, is it safe for me to stay open here? And safety isn't about intentions. It's about patterns. Some people unknowingly activate old survive responses because they interrupt, they dismiss, they escalate emotion, they demand engagement, or they create subtle pressure to perform, explain, or defend. Even if they mean well, your body remembers those patterns faster than your mind does. So instead of feeling expressive, relaxed, spontaneous, your system shifts into monitoring, shrinking, freezing, or emotional numbness. That's not you closing off. That's your system protecting capacity. Here's the important part. You don't shut down because you're broken. You shut down because your system learned that staying open in certain dynamics had a cost. And once your nervous system learns a cost, it prioritizes conservation. This is why you can be confident at work but quiet at family gatherings, calm alone but tense in conversations, clear in writing but frozen in real time. Different environments, different safety signals. Regulation isn't about forcing yourself to be more open. It's about noticing where openness is already allowed. When your system feels safe, it doesn't need motivation. Expression happens naturally. So instead of asking, why am I like this with them? Try asking, what does my body need in order to stay present here? That question changes everything. Because healing isn't about fixing your reactions. It's about creating conditions where your system no longer has to defend itself. And when safety is present, shutdown isn't necessary. Most people think people-pleasing is a personality trait. Something you need better boundaries for, something you should just stop doing. But people-pleasing isn't a choice. It's a nervous system strategy. When your nervous system learns early on that connection equals safety, and disconnection equals danger, it adapts. It learns to scan rooms, read tone shifts, anticipate needs before they're spoken. Not because you're kind, not because you're weak, but because your system learned that keeping others regulated kept you safe. People-pleasing is what happens when your body believes if they're okay, I'll be okay. So you soften your voice, you explain yourself too much. You say yes when your body says no, you apologize for things that aren't yours. And here's the part most advice misses. Your system isn't trying to sabotage you. It's trying to prevent loss. Loss of connection, loss of approval, loss of emotional safety. That's why forcing boundaries doesn't work at first, because to a dysregulated nervous system, a boundary doesn't feel empowering. It feels like abandonment. Real regulation doesn't start with saying no. It starts with teaching your body that you can stay connected without performing. That silence doesn't equal danger, that someone else's discomfort won't destroy you, that you don't have to manage the room to belong in it. As your system settles, people-pleasing fades naturally. Not because you became tougher, but because your body stopped believing it had to earn safety. This is what regulation in real life looks like. Not confidence, not dominance, but the quiet ability to remain yourself, even when others are uncomfortable, and when your nervous system learns that people-pleasing becomes unnecessary. Most people think conflict is exhausting because of raised voices, tension, or drama. But here's the truth most don't realize. Conflict can feel exhausting even when it's calm, because your nervous system is still working. When your system has learned to survive by reading people, managing tone, or preventing escalation, it doesn't shut off just because the conversation looks peaceful on the outside. You might be sitting there, calm voice, measured words, but internally, your body is scanning. Am I safe right now? Did that shift mean something? Do I need to explain more? Should I soften this so it lands better? That internal monitoring is work, and it's exhausting. This is why you can walk away from a good conversation feeling drained, while the other person feels fine. Because the cost wasn't emotional, it was regulatory. Your nervous system was holding the room together. In regulated systems, conflict is just information. Two people exchange perspectives, adjust, and move on. But in systems shaped by unpredictability, criticism, or emotional responsibility, conflict becomes a performance. Not to win, not to dominate, but to maintain safety. And the body doesn't care how polite the words were. It only tracks effort. This is also why you may avoid conflict entirely, even healthy conflict. Not because you're weak, not because you're passive, but because your system remembers the cost. The good news is this: exhaustion isn't a flaw, it's feedback. It's your nervous system saying, I don't want to work this hard to stay safe anymore. As regulation builds, conflict stops feeling like a job. You no longer have to manage, monitor, or carry emotional weight that isn't yours. And one day, you'll notice something subtle but powerful. You can disagree. Stay.
Most people think boundaries require strength, confidence, or confrontation. They don't. Boundaries actually come from regulation, not force. When someone is regulated, their nervous system isn't trying to protect itself through urgency. There's no spike, no defense, no need to prove anything. That's why regulated boundaries often look quiet. A regulated person doesn't explain themselves excessively. They don't over-justify. They don't escalate to be taken seriously. They simply notice when something feels misaligned and respond from clarity instead of threat. You'll hear things like, "That doesn't work for me. I'm not available for that. I'm going to step back from this." No emotion attached, no story, no push. And here's what's important, that calm isn't detachment. It's containment. When the nervous system feels safe, it doesn't need force to hold a line. The line already exists. Unregulated boundaries, on the other hand, come with tension. They sound like explanations, defensiveness, or sudden firmness that surprises everyone, including the person setting them. That's not a failure. That's a system trying to protect itself before it knows it's allowed to. As regulation increases, boundaries stop being reactive and start being informational. They're not meant to control other people. They're simply signals of where your system ends and someone else's begins. And here's the part people miss. Regulated boundaries don't require agreement. You don't need permission. You don't need validation. You don't need the other person to understand. You just need internal alignment. That's why regulated people can stay warm and firm at the same time. Kind, but clear. Open, but not porous. No force, no collapse, no performance. Just truth, delivered calmly. That's regulation in real life.
Have you ever noticed that after some conversations you feel steady, and after others you feel off? Not emotional, not upset, just different. That shift isn't random. It's your nervous system responding to context. Every interaction carries a level of safety or threat, even when nothing bad happens. Your body is constantly tracking tone, pacing, eye contact, expectations, and pressure. When you're around someone regulated, your system doesn't have to prepare. There's no bracing, no self-monitoring, no subtle tightening. You leave feeling mostly the same as you entered. But around certain people or environments, your system starts scanning. You might talk more or go quiet or feel tired afterward without knowing why. That's not weakness. That's your body working to keep you safe. Here's the key part. Regulation isn't about liking or disliking someone. It's about whether your system feels it needs to manage the interaction. When there's pressure to perform, explain, agree, or stay alert, your body pays a cost. That's why regulated people pay attention to after effects, not just the interaction itself. They notice, how do I feel after? Did my body settle or stay activated? This isn't about cutting people off. It's about noticing patterns. Because when your system doesn't need to prepare for loss, conflict, or correction, it conserves energy. And that conserved energy shows up as clarity, patience, capacity. Regulation in real life isn't dramatic. It's quiet, It's leaving conversations without residue. It's staying yourself before, during, and after. And once you start noticing how your body responds, you don't need force to make changes. Your system will guide you. That's regulation in real life.
Most people don't burn out because they're doing too much. They burn out because they keep staying emotionally available after their system is empty. This is subtle, and it's rarely talked about. You can still show up. You can still be kind. You can still listen, nod, respond, reassure. But inside, something is being pulled from a reserve that's already gone. When your nervous system is depleted, emotional availability stops being connection and starts becoming extraction. And your body knows the difference, even if your mind doesn't. Here's what that cost looks like in real life. You feel flat after conversations, even calm ones. You need more recovery time, but don't get it. You feel irritable or numb for no clear reason. You start avoiding people you care about. You feel selfish for wanting space. That's not a personality flaw. That's a system running on fumes. Regulated people don't stay emotionally open at all times. They stay accurate. They know that availability without capacity teaches the body that connection equals depletion. And over time, the nervous system learns to protect itself by pulling back entirely. That's when people say things like, "I don't feel like myself anymore. I don't enjoy people like I used to. I don't know why I'm so tired all the time." What's actually happening is this. Your system is trying to prevent collapse. Real regulation isn't about being endlessly open. It's about knowing when openness is safe. Sometimes regulation looks like shorter conversations, neutral responses instead of emotional ones, saying "I don't have capacity right now" without explaining, choosing rest over reassurance, letting people feel their own feelings. This isn't withdrawal, it's preservation. Because when you stay emotionally available while depleted, you teach your body that your needs don't matter. And the body remembers that. Regulation in real life is learning that connection doesn't require self-abandonment. You don't owe emotional access just because someone expects it. You don't need to justify your limits, and you don't have to wait until you're exhausted to protect your energy. Capacity comes first. Availability comes second. That's not selfish. That's how safety is rebuilt.
Most people think pulling away means fear of intimacy. That's not usually what's happening. Pulling away often happens when closeness exceeds nervous system capacity, not desire. You can want connection. You can care deeply. You can even feel safe with someone, and still feel your body tighten when things get closer. That reaction isn't conscious. It's not a choice, it's your system asking for regulation. When closeness increases, so does sensory input. More emotional cues, more responsibility, more unpredictability, more demand on attention. If your system learned early that closeness required vigilance, caretaking, or self-monitoring, intimacy doesn't feel nourishing. It feels activating. So the body does what it learned to do. It creates distance, not to punish, not to control, not to avoid love, but to stabilize. This is why people often pull away after things start going well. When connection is distant, it's manageable. When it becomes consistent, present, and emotionally available, the system has to stay online longer. That's expensive. Regulated people don't force themselves to stay close when their system is overwhelmed. They listen to the signal without turning it into a story. Instead of "something's wrong with me" or "I'm about to lose this," They ask, what just increased in demand? Sometimes regulation looks like slowing the pace, taking space without cutting off, naming limits without explaining, staying connected without being fused. Pulling back doesn't mean the relationship is unsafe. It means your system needs room to recalibrate. The work isn't to push through closeness. The work is to expand capacity without abandoning yourself. Because real intimacy isn't about proximity. It's about staying present without your nervous system leaving the room. That's regulation in real life.
Most people confuse intensity for safety. The highs, the urgency, the emotional closeness that feels electric. But intensity isn't safety, it's activation. Safety in relationships feels very different, and that's why so many people miss it. Safety feels quiet. It feels like you don't have to track the other person's mood. You don't have to manage timing. You don't have to calculate how your words will land. Your body isn't bracing. When a relationship is safe, your nervous system doesn't rush to explain itself. You don't feel the need to over-clarify, overshare, or overperform to stay connected. There's room to pause. You can disagree without fearing abandonment. You can be quiet without being misunderstood. You can have a bad day without it turning into a rupture. Safety feels like permission to be neutral. No chasing, no proving, no emotional spikes required to feel close. And here's the part that confuses people the most. Safety can feel boring at first. Not because the relationship lacks depth, but because your nervous system is used to intensity as a signal of connection. If you grew up around unpredictability, or learned love through conflict, or bonded through emotional highs and lows, calm can feel unfamiliar, even suspicious. Your body might say, something's missing. But what's missing is the adrenaline. Safety doesn't activate your system, it settles it. You don't lose yourself in the relationship. You stay oriented to yourself while being connected to someone else. That's regulation in real life. Not fireworks, not urgency, not emotional merging. Just steady presence, clear boundaries, and a body that knows it doesn't have to protect itself to stay connected. If intensity has been your baseline, safety won't feel exciting at first. It will feel like exhale. And that's how you know it's real.
A lot of people think regulation means being calm all the time. Quiet, neutral, unbothered. But that's not regulation. That's withdrawal. Real regulation is active. It's choosing what you engage with and what you don't without needing to explain, defend, or shut down. When your nervous system is regulated, you're not numb. You're available, but you're available selectively. You can hear something without reacting to it. You can notice tension without chasing it. You can feel pressure without letting it hijack your behavior. That's not passivity. That's precision. Unregulated systems engage with everything. Every tone shift, every implied threat, every emotional ripple in the room. Regulated systems don't do that. They conserve energy. They ask one quiet question before responding. Is this mine to engage with? And if the answer is no, nothing dramatic happens, no spike, no shutdown. No explanation, just non-engagement. This is why regulated people can seem confusing at first. They're not ignoring you. They're not avoiding you. They're just not giving their nervous system away to things that don't require it. Regulation isn't about being nice.
It isn't about being agreeable, and it isn't about being detached. It's about maintaining internal order. You still care, you still act, you still speak up when it matters. But you don't get pulled into every invitation to react. And here's the part most people miss. Selective engagement isn't something you decide in the moment. It's something your system earns through safety. When your body feels safe, it doesn't need to prove anything. It doesn't need to win. It doesn't need to correct. It responds only when alignment is present. So if you've been trying to stay calm and it feels exhausting, that's not regulation. Regulation feels lighter, cleaner, more efficient. Because your system knows not everything deserves access. That's regulation in real life.